All right, it's recording.
Perfect. So, hello, my name is Monty Elbazaz. I am a research assistant for doc with Dr. Salsabil Al Mansouri's Technology Facilitated Sexual Violence in Ontario Secondary Schools project at the Faculty of Education at the University of Windsor. So, to start off the interview, my first question, just very brief. Can you briefly introduce yourself and your academic background, please?
Sure. My name is Antunes. I am an assistant professor, and this is my cat, Henrietta. Um, I'm an assistant professor in gender studies at the University of Utah. I come from, I do research in education. I have a PhD in education, and my background is I study with refugee and immigrant youth in the education system here in Salt Lake City, Utah. And I'm originally from Brazil.
Perfect. And now let's move on to the article. What inspired you to research and write about hijabi girlhood, sorry, for the special issue?
So my I actually did not originally set out um to do work on hijabis. I um wanted to I for my dissertation, for my PhD dissertation project, I worked on a participatory action research project with Muslim girls in schools here in Salt Lake City. And it just so happened that all of the girls who got involved with the project were hijabis. And throughout our we were thinking about Islamophobia in general, but through our interactions with their peers, um, issues around the hijab um, were always coming up, even when we were not asking about the hijab. Their peers were talking about the hijab, and so that was why our project ended up becoming about the hijab because we realized that one, people had a lot of wrong ideas about what it means to be a hijabi, but also because people were putting a lot of assumptions on um, who they were and their family structure, their family life. So that's why we decided to focus on the hijab.
Very great. Yeah, I did read your article. Great piece, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, it definitely gave me another perspective to look at girls with the hijab, and I'm a Muslim myself, but some of the things that you brought up in your article were really interesting. And personally, the first time that, I took a step back and thought, that's something that I never would have expected hijabi girls to go through and experience here in Western society.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you saying that.
No problem. So could you summarize the key findings or arguments of your article?
Yeah, so sure. So one of the things that it's really important is the idea of racialization, right, with the hijab. We know that in the US there is I mean, Islamophobia isn't new, but there's been a heightened sort of focus on it since 9/11, but particularly I was doing my data collection work during the Trump's first candidacy. So there was a lot of like heightened attention into Islamophobia, right? And just recognizing how hijabi girls' religious belonging is marked on their body, and that it may not be true for other members of the Muslim faith. And just realizing how that racialization impacts the way um, girls experience the educational system, right? In general. One of the things that I find that, and I know that that is your next question, that I thought it was really interesting, is that, Utah is a very traditionally a very religious state, right? It is the center of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. There's a huge population here, and people would imagine that there would be a little bit more religious acceptance in the state, because people are, even though they're a majority in the state, they're members of a minority religious group.
Yeah.
And what I found was really interesting is that idea that um uh you know Islam, or being Muslim, is not really understood as being a religion sort of affiliation, and has more of this like um embodied sort of, it's something that you cannot change about yourself. It's something that goes with the racialization as well, of something that, like, you know girls who wear hijabs are forever hijabis, and have been forever hijabis, and won't, and that will never change, sort of thing, right?
Yes.
Which is different than how other religious groups are sort of understood, especially because conversion is a really big thing in the LDS religion, and switching religions, right? And bringing people into their own faith. But they don't recognize, from the students that we talked to at school, didn't recognize like Islam as being sort of a similar kind of identity, right? It's just, yeah.
Very interesting. Yeah, I did a little research on my own, and Utah has an approximate population of around 60,000 Muslims, which is a small figure, but proportionate to the overall population of the state. They do have like a voice. They know that people who are non-Muslim in Utah know that there are
Right.
many Muslims around them.
Yeah.
Which leads me to my next question. What was the most surprising or, in your opinion, challenging aspect of your research in part with hijabi girlhoods?
One of the things that I mean, I talked about the religion part, but one of the things that I wanna, and I don't think it's surprising, because I knew the girls who were working with me. I knew them for a really long time. And I knew they were amazing, but I just want to, like, really highlight the like the importance of the work that they did, and sort of trying to understand how their peers perceive them, and the sort of um, power it gave them to recognize that these are sort of systemic issues, right? That their interactions with their peers are just materializations of bigger things, and sort of give them like um tools to sort of talk back to what was happening to them. And I think, to me, um it is the most rewarding part of the work that I did, is when these girls recognize that the issue wasn't them, right? That there was a larger issue, and then that they had tools to fight against it, right? Just by existing in spaces, just by challenging people's perceptions of who they were. And I think that is really important to me. One of the challenging aspects, I mean, I think, was the time I was doing research. I think since then, like I said, Islamophobia has been um, people have gotten permission to say horrible things or to act horribly more than they would before.
Yeah.
And working with, girls, it's something that really concerned me, to make sure that they were, especially because this was a participatory project, to make sure that they were getting involved the way that they wanted to, and that we were doing this project the way that they wanted to. But at the same time, I was keeping them safe from, you know, violence in all sorts of forms in our community.
Yeah. Um, it's interesting that you point that out because in your article you did mention, based on data, that Islamophobia or attacks on Muslims were higher under the Trump administration or around the time that
Right,
Donald Trump became the president of the United States, even after 9/11,
right, right,
which definitely, that's a big number, like a big piece of
right,
data to look at. And it raises concerns definitely at how during that election time, 2016, before the presidential election happened, how Trump used his words to basically enable anyone and everyone who felt like Muslims were the problem for
right,
some odd reason.
right,
But it was definitely interesting to look at
right,
that for sure.
right, and embolden people to say whatever they wanted to, right?
Yeah.
Because especially, you know, high school students who are still coming to their own sort of political consciousness are
Yes.
hearing these things on TV, they're hearing from their parents, and they're just repeating it at a school without having like fully formed like ideas on what they're saying. They're mostly, so it can be really dangerous. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so the next part of the interview, we're going to look at the impact that your piece had on the article. So, how do you think your research contributes to the broader understanding of hijabi girlhoods?
I mean, I think the body of literature that is talking back to these very antiquated and stereotypical ideas of who hijabis are is growing. But I think that is one contribution of my article, is that that sense of agency. I think that throughout our project, the agency of the girls who were involved, it's really clear. Also their own there was a lot of reflection on their own uh choices and their own understanding of what it means for them to be a hijabi. So I think it helps, it contributes with that, um to that well, it's the reality, but to the, to the body of literature that sees hijabi girls as agents, right? As people who are making decisions for themselves, or people who are not just passive and submissive to religious beliefs or their families or whatever. That there's an active participation in decision making process there.
Yeah, and rightfully so. A lot of people associate when they see the hijab, they think that either the girl, it was forced upon her, through what they hear about Islam as a religion or what their family beliefs are, and that, they have an image to pertain as a Muslim girl in society. So, very few people ever think that, when they see a hijabi girl, that, oh, it was by choice.
Right.
Yeah. So what impact do you hope your work will have on future research, education, or policy of any kind?
I you know I think my work more broadly, I think the impact that I always want to have is to help folks who are making decisions about education in general recognize that the most important voice is always the youth's voice, the kids who are in school.
Yes.
They're the ones who are living that reality. They're the ones who are living the policies that we're making as adults, or the curriculums that we're developing as adults. and that it's really important to have them be active in that decision-making process. And I hope that people, um, when they read my work, when they read this piece, that they can see and understand that we cannot make any policies or try to combat Islamophobia in schools in any way without including the youth themselves, right? The students themselves in figuring out what is happening, but also creating solutions for those issues.
Yes, very good. Leads me to our last few questions here. With regards to current relevance, are there any recent developments or events that have made your research even more relevant today?
Um, I mean, yes. Unfortunately, I think Donald Trump's new candidacy just won't go away. I think makes it, I think it's important to continue to remember the things that he said and the way that he was promoting fear in our community. So I think that makes it uh, really relevant. But I think I think it's really relevant that um, this project made a big difference in all of our lives. And just a couple months ago, one of the she's now graduated college, which makes me feel really old. She was a sophomore when we were doing our project, and now is a
Wow.
college graduate. But she was doing a job interview, um, and was talking about the project and about the work that she did, and with a company from outside of the state. And the person who was interviewing her had actually been in Salt Lake at that time and had seen the exhibit that they created and had
Wow.
been really impressed by the work that she's been done. So I think to recognize um, that the work that she did had an impact outs not just in Salt Lake City, but outside of our state, and that people saw it and remember it, and it was important to them. I think that makes, that is more relevant, I think, than whatever contribution my article can make, is the fact that she can now that she realized that like people were listening to what she was saying, and that people like remembered and paid attention, and that that her voice is important.
That's very great. Do you mind like if I ask who the person was? Because I do remember you said you had five,
Yeah,
all Hijabi girls
yeah,
research assistants.
yeah. Caddy was
Okay.
one of she and I. Life goes and changes, but I'm still really, really um closely connected to three of the girls who um, were involved in that project,
Yeah,
and they're uh, yeah, they're amazing humans. I'm happy to have them in my life every day. So
that's great to hear. They definitely contributed to a well-written piece. And it's ironic that you say caddy because the start of your article really hooks someone into the caddy getting called a terrorist and she wasn't even aware of the situation. And
right,
the best way for her to realize that was by laughing it off.
right, right.
Yeah.
And she published a poem as well on the journal. So yeah, so and she's um continuing to do the advocacy work, and she volunteered here. She interned here with the uh, Muslim Civic League and did a lot of
Mm.
community engagement work with the Muslim community here in Salt Lake. So she's continuing to doing that work of um, advocacy for the Muslim community here.
Yeah, it's definitely nice to know that it wasn't a one-time thing, and the
Right.
people that were involved early on have continued to
Right.
carry that initiative.
Yeah.
So final thoughts. Is there anything else you'd like to share about your research or the overall importance of this particular topic?
I mean, um, I think um, people dismiss, I think at times, Islamophobia, not that they don't believe it exists, but the degree of impact that it has in the lives of so many people, and the I mean, I think the powerfulness of it in terms of systemic sort of ways that people are discriminated and excluded from their communities in general. And I hope that, uh, people continue to study and continue to further understand the ways in which it is pervasive, um, and the impact that it has um, in people's lives, right?
Yeah. How, in your words, how can people stay engaged with your work or any similar studies that you have going on?
Um, I am not very good at sharing things about my own work. But if people like want to know more about the work that I'm doing, I continue to work with the Muslim community here in Salt Lake. The majority of the Muslim community here in Salt Lake is it's a refugee community. I continue to do a lot of work with them, and I think people um, should continue to read and learn about the issues that are happening. I think people should um, um, not trust some of those stereotypes of the ideas that people put out in the media. And I think they should um, like investigate more and don't let like political discourse around Muslim communities in their area sort of um, guide their understanding of the Muslim community in their area. And like I said, if people want to know more about my work or what I'm doing, I'm always happy to answer emails um, and talk to people about that. It's something that I'm really passionate about, so I'm happy to talk to people more if they want to talk about it more.
Perfect. Well, I appreciate you taking the time of your busy day to sit down and have this conversation. I feel I don't like to, you know, create this dynamic of interviewer and
Right,
interviewee. It's more of a conversation.
right.
And that's I hopefully that's the vibe that we created.
Yeah. It was
So
really nice to meet you.
thank you likewise. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, and I will send you the audio and the video.
Perfect. Yeah, you have my email.
Sounds good. Yeah,
Go
I'll
for
do
it.
that.
Appreciate it. Thank
Yeah.
you, Anna, for your time.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.